And because we've already talked about what habits you should start in 2023, I think we should have kind of a separate video just to talk about habits you should definitely quit next year. And of course that my idea is not to talk about habits that are obviously bad for you, like smoking or eating a lot of fast food or things like that, because those are obviously bad for you. My idea here is to talk about some hidden bad habits that we have, and they really harm us without us even noticing. So first of all, I'm going to list 7 bad habits you should think about ending in 2023, and then we're going to discuss the strategy you need to use to get rid of them for good. Bad habit number 1 is obsessing with planning and then doing nothing at all. Usually when we start to obsess and get excited over a new project, we tend to plan for so long, and planning is great. The more you plan, probably the more successful you will be, because you are going to imagine several different outcomes. You'll be able to do a lot of problem solving, a lot of decision making in advance. The problem is when you don't limit that time you spend planning. So try as much as possible to set a specific amount of time for the planning stage whenever you're preparing a new project. This can be 2 weeks, 2 months, it really depends on the complexity of the project you have at hand. But either way, setting this limit clearly in your calendar, in your planner, in your time management app will allow you to avoid this bad habit in general. Habit number 2 is considering yourself lazy. If you consider yourself lazy, that's because you probably tend to procrastinate. And procrastination comes in many different sizes and many different colors, but lazy is actually not one of them. Most procrastination comes from a kind of inevitable human trait that we all have, which is avoiding friction. And secondly, procrastination comes a lot from very unhelpful, distressing thoughts that a lot of us have. And of course, you can also be suffering from mental or physical health issues that make this problem even worse. But some distressing thoughts are things like, I don't care about this enough, I'm not capable of this, I don't know where to start, I was not cut out for this project. So the thing you call laziness is actually not the cause, it's not the root of the problem. It's simply a symptom of the problem. I'll point you towards a specific video I made about this issue in specific, and you're going to explore a little bit more what's the root cause of your procrastination and how you can get rid of it. Bad habit number 3 is living to impress other people. I believe that one of the biggest things that we all kind of admit to ourselves during our adult life is that so many of our life choices and our decisions were made because we wanted to kind of impress other people, whether it was like the population in general, whether it was our parents, our loved ones, or even ourselves in some sort of external sense. But a lot of those decisions are not really about us. They're not really heartfelt. And while this is kind of a really human principle, because we're all social creatures and we tend to interact in a way where seeking social approval is important for our survival, this principle can be incredibly damaging. Being aware that your brain was kind of made to force you to mimic other people's behaviors is important for you to identify those tendencies and try to change things around. That's because you will end up doing things that you do not agree with. You'll end up walking the path other people are walking simply because you're afraid of walking that path alone. And that's really not okay, because you're not making decisions and you're not setting goals that are heartfelt and are individual to you only. And bad habit number 4 is making decisions when you're tired, angry, or anxious. Making important life decisions when you're just feeling your worst is a terrible idea. Although in some cases you aren't actually able to postpone your decision, in other cases you are able to delay the decision-making process for a couple of hours when you're feeling more relaxed and you're able to regain your composure. And I think that's really important for you to make, a good decision. And a lot of people make decisions in the heat of the moment. And a lot of people make decisions in the heat of the moment, out of panic, out of overwhelm. And while that's a natural response, you're going to make a decision that is more instinctive and impulsive instead of making a decision that's based out of reason and logical thoughts. And while you should always trust your gut and trust your instinct when making a decision, there's a big difference in tapping mindfully into your instincts and your gut and, being so blind by rage or by, because you're sleep deprived that you make a decision without even really considering everything that you're putting into that decision. Bad habit number 5 is multitasking. And I know I've been saying this for so long, and I've been saying this in so many videos, but multitasking will never do you any sort of good. There's actually nothing good in multitasking at all. And the thing is, you're not special. You cannot multitask, and that's because no one can actually multitask. What we usually do is something called task switching, and we are dividing our attention between 2 different or 3 different tasks, and we're not giving 100% of our attention to either of them. When you multitask, you're always cutting back on energy, detail, and performance. Your work is losing quality, and you're even getting exhausted in the process. And once again, I'll point you towards a video where I go a little bit more in depth about this problem. And this is probably one of the most practical things in this list, but not cleaning up after you do a mess is something that you need to avoid ASAP. If you feel like you're always losing control of your household, if you feel like you always have to do huge Saturday cleanups because everything just piles up during the week, that's because you are letting that pile up. There's literally no reason for you to do that. Of course, that in some cases, it's normal that clutter piles up and that the messes will pile up, but you'll be absolutely surprised at the amount of time that a lot of chores actually take of your time. So the next time you want to do something like vacuum a room or clean the dishes, set a timer, or at least try to understand how much time you take doing those tasks, because maybe you'll find out that it takes 5 minutes for you to clean or vacuum that room, or that it takes around 45 seconds for you to be able to clean the dishes after a meal. And when you realize that you can make those things in such a short amount of time, you'll also realize there's absolutely no reason for you to let these things pile up during the week. And before we jump into how you can get rid of these bad habits, I just wanted to add a last one, and that is you check your phone. And I was doing this right now. You check your phone way too often. And you do that, and I do it too. So I think we're kind of all in this same boat together now. And I know that nowadays, social media, chatting apps, and everything, even concerning the way we work and our relationships work, everything conditions us to constantly check our phones and constantly check our social media. But there are actually ways for you to make this better and to avoid this tendency, which is just robbing you of your precious attention to make connections and invest in activities that are actually great for you. Our phones are actually better equipped than ever to help you with this particular thing. So right now you're able to establish focus profiles where you just disable notifications for a short amount of time or a long amount of time. You can, for instance, create notification summaries where everything that's coming to your phone is going to be compiled into one kind of section, and then you can schedule when you're going to see all of those notifications pop up on your phone as well. And while I may have given you some clues as to how you can break these bad habits specifically, there are general considerations you should take into account to make this work for everything in your life that is not currently posing any value to you, and any kind of habit that you just want to get rid of very quickly this year. So the first thing you should do is identify the bad habits. And prompt journaling is great for this. You can literally create checklists of habits you want to get rid of. Identifying those habits, being aware that they are there, that they exist, will allow you to go the next step, which is actually making a plan to get rid of those habits. Also know that, all of your habits, whether good or bad, they have triggers. So after you identify the bad habits, you should identify the trigger that actually causes it. The interesting thing is, you actually have bad habits because there is some sort of reward that tells you that when you finish that bad habit, you are going to get something in return. And some triggers are actually pretty easy to delete altogether. For instance, you may eat too much sugar because when you go grocery shopping, you always tend to purchase things that are full of sugar. If you remove the trigger, which is availability, having that sugar available in your pantry, in your house, you are going to be able to avoid the trigger and actually defeat that bad habit. However, the problem is your reasons, of course, can be motivated by something way more complex. Your habit may be triggered by lack of self-esteem or even maybe a trauma. In those cases, unfortunately, you'll have to work a lot harder and you'll have to find help to create the tools that you'll need to get rid of those bad habits. But either way, identifying the bad habit, first of all, and then identifying the trigger or its cause is what's going to help you get ready and prepare to get rid of it. And if you can't eliminate the reward, you can make it simply impractical to do. This is something that James Clear really kind of elaborates on in his book Atomic Habits, but it really works when you're able to do it. For instance, if you want to stop being so obsessed with social media, the good way to make it really impractical for you to go on social media is to get rid of your social media apps. So of course that you can always re-download them to your phone, but it's so impractical to do it that maybe you're just going to do it less often. And as you reduce the amount of time you spend in social media, that bad habit is going to lose its strength overall. Another example, if you have a really bad habit of going to bed really late, and you know this is actually bad for you, so you're not naturally a night owl, you just kind of get involved in other secondary bad habits like binge watching things that get you to that point. A good thing you can do is, for instance, sign up for an early morning class. If you sign up for an early morning class like at 6 a.m. and you continue the bad habit of going to bed too late, you're just going to get sleep deprived, which is literally not a reward at all to go to bed later. Probably you're going to make the mistake of still going to bed later and then going to that 6 a.m. class, but after 1 or 2 nights, I think your brain will probably get the message. That bad habit is going to lose its reward, which is probably that comforting feeling of staying at home late, staying and watching TV or reading really late. And as you lose your reward, your brain is going to want to stop that habit from continuing. Now, of course, this is all very complex and it really depends on the person. So maybe the examples I just gave you don't make sense for your lifestyle at all or for your circumstances. But the idea here is for you to make a mindful exercise to identify those bad habits, identify the triggers, and make them really impractical to happen in your daily life. And tracking these complex goals over the course of a year can be a difficult chore when you're tracking everything on paper. So if you're looking for a valuable companion in this journey that can manage your lists, trackers, and multiple pages of info, today's sponsor Notion is your best bet. Notion can be used individually or to collaborate with other people. You can organize anything in your life with all of its templates and tools, including habit trackers, journaling pages, keeping track of personal projects, work schedules, birthdays, networking events, cleaning chores, and so much more. You can use and explore Notion anytime you want and for as long as you like, because your personal plan is literally free, with absolutely no restrictions. It's the best investment you can make in 2023, and it doesn't cost a cent. So to start using Notion today and get your free account, you can go to the link in the description box, or you can click the button that's on the screen right now. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I will see you next week. Bye guys!